The sky burned orange and red as the Korath warships descended through the clouds. High Counselor Theven stood on the balcony of his tower and watched his world die. Behind him, the great city of Volantis stretched for miles, its beautiful floating buildings now trembling as explosions shook the ground far away. The Volani people had never known war. For 300 cycles, they had lived in peace. They built cities that floated on magnetic currents. They created art that moved people to tears. They studied philosophy and poetry and the deep mysteries of the universe. They believed that all intelligent beings were good at art. They were wrong. The Korath were a species of insect-like creatures with black exoskeletons and cold, calculating minds. They did not want resources. They did not want territory. They wanted extinction. Their entire civilization was built on one simple belief. Any species that might one day become a threat must be destroyed before it grew too strong. The Volani had committed no crime. They had attacked no one. But their children showed signs of developing psychic abilities, and the Korath had decided this made them dangerous. So the Korath came with 300 warships and an army of millions to wipe them from existence. Theven felt tears running down his pale blue face. His people were gentle. They had no weapons. They had no soldiers. How could they fight an enemy that wanted nothing but their death? His aide, a young female named Cerise, entered the room. Her large silver eyes were filled with fear, but she kept her voice steady. "High Counselor, we have sent distress signals to every species in the Galactic Registry. The Dothrani said they cannot get involved. The Mekath claim it is not their concern. The Galactic Council has scheduled a meeting to discuss our situation." "When?" Theven asked. "Next lunar cycle." Theven closed his eyes. His people would be dead long before then. The galaxy was full of powerful civilizations, but none of them cared about a small, peaceful planet at the edge of known space. There was one response, Cerise continued, from a species called humans. Theven had heard of humans. They were a young species from a small blue planet called Earth. They had only discovered how to travel between stars 200 years ago. The galactic community considered them primitive and unimportant. Most species did not even bother to learn their language. What did they say? Theven asked without much hope. They asked for our exact location. They said they are coming to help. They said. Cerise looked at her datapad with confusion. They said to hold on. Help is coming. How long until they arrive? They claimed 6 hours. Theven turned to look at her. That was impossible. The human homeworld was many light years away. Even the fastest Korath ships would need 3 days to travel that distance. They must be mistaken, he said. Or lying. Perhaps they simply wanted to give us false hope. Below them, the streets were filled with refugees. Families carried their children. The elderly helped each other walk. They were all moving toward the underground shelters beneath the city, but Theven knew those shelters would not protect them for long. A massive explosion lit up the horizon. Another city had fallen. Millions of his people gone in an instant. Order everyone to the shelters, Theven said quietly. We will hold as long as we can. He did not believe help was coming. He did not believe in miracles. But he would protect his people until his last breath. The next 6 hours were the longest of Theven's life. He helped organize the evacuation, moving through crowds of frightened people, trying to give them hope he did not feel. The Korath bombardment continued without pause. City after city fell. The beautiful floating structures that his ancestors had built crashed to the ground, killing everyone inside. By the 5th hour, the Korath had established complete control of the sky. Their ground forces began landing. Thousands of soldiers in dark armor carrying weapons that turned living beings to dust. They moved through the ruins systematically, searching for survivors. Theven was in the main shelter when Cerise found him again. Her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. "High Counselor, something is happening in orbit." They made their way to a communication room where a single screen still worked. What Theven saw made him stop breathing. 12 ships had appeared out of nowhere. They were smaller than the Korath warships, sleek and angular, painted in shifting colors that seemed to shimmer. They moved through the Korath fleet like predators through a herd of prey, and they were destroying everything in their path. Theven watched in disbelief as the human ships dodged every attack the Korath fired at them. They moved in impossible ways, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield as if space itself bent around them. When they fired back, Korath warships exploded like paper in a fire. "This cannot be real," Ceres whispered, but it was real. The humans had come. Within 20 minutes, the Korath fleet was running. Half their ships were destroyed. The survivors fled into the darkness of space, chased by the relentless human vessels. And then the human voice came through every communication channel on the planet, speaking in perfect Volani. "This is Captain Samuel Hart of the United Earthship Endeavor. The enemy fleet has been neutralized. Ground forces are deploying now. People of Varath Prime, you are no longer alone. We are here to help." Theven fell to his knees. Around him, his people were crying, laughing, holding each other. They had been minutes from extinction, and now strange beings from a distant world had come to save them. Why? Theven asked no one in particular. Why would they come for us? Ceres knelt beside him, tears streaming down her face. "I do not know, High Counselor, but they are here." Above them, drop pods began falling from the sky like stars. Each one carried human soldiers ready to fight, ready to die for people they had never met. The tide had turned, and the galaxy would never be the same. Commander Vectros had led 47 successful invasions in his long career. He had personally overseen the extinction of 3 species. His name was spoken with fear across 100 star systems. No enemy had ever escaped him. No world had ever survived his attack. He stood on the bridge of his command ship and watched his fleet burn. "Impossible," he hissed through his mandibles. "This is impossible." The human ships moved like nothing he had ever seen. They did not follow the laws of physics that governed every other vessel in the galaxy. They appeared and disappeared at will. They dodged weapons fire that should have been unavoidable. And when they struck back, they did so with terrible precision. A nearby warship exploded, the flash so bright it hurt his compound eyes. That ship had carried 5,000 Korath soldiers. Now they were atoms scattered in the void. "All ships, focus fire on the lead human vessel," Vectros ordered. "Destroy it at any cost." Every surviving Korath ship turned its weapons on Captain Samuel Hart's ship, the Endeavor. The barrage that followed was enough to crack a small moon. Plasma beams, missiles, kinetic rounds, and energy weapons all converged on a single point in space. The Endeavor was not there when they arrived. It had moved. Somehow, impossibly fast, reappearing behind the Korath formation. Its main weapon fired once. 15 ships died. Vectros felt something he had not experienced since he was a hatchling. Pure, primal fear. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships retreat." The Korath fleet, or what remained of it, turned and ran. They engaged their faster-than-light drives and fled into the darkness between stars. Some of them made it. Many did not. The human ships hunted them through the void, picking off stragglers with cold efficiency. In less than half an hour, the greatest invasion fleet in Korath history had been destroyed. On board the Endeavor, Captain Samuel Hart watched the last enemy ship disappear from his sensors. He was a man of average height with gray hair and tired eyes. He'd been a soldier for over 20 years, and he had seen terrible things. But he still felt sick when he had to kill. "Enemy fleet has withdrawn," his executive officer, Commander Lisa Perry, reported. Estimates suggest we destroyed approximately 60% of their forces. Good, Hart said quietly. What's the situation on the ground? Korath forces are still active across the planet. They're hunting civilian populations. Major Cooper's team is ready for drop. Hart nodded. Tell them to deploy. Full combat spread. I want every Korath soldier off that planet by nightfall. The drop pods launched from the Endeavor and the other human ships, falling toward Vareth Prime like meteors. Each pod carried 4 soldiers in powered armor, armed with weapons that could punch through Korath. Exoskeletons like they were made of paper. Major Daniel Cooper was in the lead pod. He was 35 years old, born and raised in a small town in Texas. He had joined the Earth Defense Force because he believed in protecting people who could not protect themselves. Today, he would prove that belief was not just words. 30 seconds to ground, his squad leader, Sergeant Maria Santos, announced. Cooper checked his rifle one more time. The weapon felt good in his hands, solid, reliable. Remember our mission, he said over the squad channel. Civilian protection is priority 1. The Volani are non-combatants. They have no weapons and no training. They're counting on us. Understood, sir, came the chorus of responses. The pod hit the ground with a bone-shaking impact. The doors blew open, and Cooper was out before the dust settled. His armor sensors immediately began feeding him information. Enemy positions, civilian clusters, terrain features. There were Korath soldiers 200 meters ahead, moving toward a group of Volani who were trying to flee through the ruins of their city. Contact front, Cooper announced. 40 hostiles. Civilian group at risk. Moved to intercept. His squad advanced in a precise formation, years of training guiding their movements. The Korath saw them coming and turned to fight, confident in their superior numbers. They died quickly. Human weapons tore through their armor like it was nothing. Human soldiers moved faster than the Korath could track, flanking and surrounding them with practiced ease. In less than 2 minutes, all 40 Korathi soldiers were dead. Cooper approached the Volani civilians carefully, his weapon lowered. They were huddled together, their large silver eyes wide with fear. They had never seen humans before, and the powered armor made his soldiers look like metal monsters. It's okay, Cooper said, his suit translating his words into Volani. You're safe now. We're here to help. An elderly Volani male stepped forward. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. Who are you? Why did you come? Cooper removed his helmet so they could see his face. He was just a man, tired, dirty, but smiling. We're from Earth. We heard you needed help, but we are nothing to you. We have nothing to offer. We cannot pay you or help you in return. Cooper looked at the frightened faces around him. Children hiding behind their parents. Elderly people who could barely stand. A whole civilization on the edge of extinction. You don't have to offer us anything, he said. That's not how this works. You were in trouble. We could help. So we came. The elderly Volani stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to cry. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Across the planet, similar scenes played out. Human soldiers descended from the sky and pushed back the Korath invaders. They fought in ruined cities, in burning forests, in mountain passes and coastal plains. They took casualties, but they kept fighting. And wherever they went, they saved lives. By nightfall, as Captain Hart had ordered, the last Korath soldier on Vareth Prime was dead or captured. The invasion was over. The Volani people would survive. In the shelters beneath the capital city, High Counselor Theven received the news with quiet disbelief. The humans had won. The impossible had happened. He did not yet understand what this meant for the galaxy. He did not know that everything was about to change. All he knew was that when all hope had been lost, strangers had come to save his people. and that was enough. The sun rose over Varath Prime, but the world it revealed was broken. Cities that had floated in the sky now lay shattered on the ground. Forests that had stood for 1,000 years were burned to ash. Millions were dead, and millions more were wounded, homeless, and afraid. But they were alive. And that was because of the humans. Major Daniel Cooper had not slept in 32 hours. His armor was scorched and dented from a dozen firefights. He had taken a plasma burn to his left shoulder that still throbbed despite the painkillers his suit pumped into his blood. But he kept moving, because there was still work to do. Sector 7 is clear, Sergeant Maria Santos reported through his earpiece. We found another group of survivors. About 200 civilians, mostly children and elderly. Get them to the main relief point, Cooper replied. Medical teams are standing by. He looked across the ruined plaza where his squad had set up a temporary command post. Human soldiers moved through the rubble, searching for survivors. Volani civilians sat in groups, wrapped in blankets that the humans had brought from their ships. Medical officers treated the wounded, while engineers worked to restore power and water. A young Volani female approached Cooper hesitantly. She was small, barely reaching his chest, with the same large silver eyes as all her people. But hers were filled with questions rather than fear. You are the commander? She asked in accented English. The translator had taught her the basics quickly. I'm Major Cooper. Can I help you with something? I am called Cerise. I serve High Counselor Theven. He wishes to speak with you. Cooper nodded and followed her through the ruins. They walked past scenes of destruction that would have broken a weaker person. Bodies still lay where they had fallen. Buildings were nothing but twisted metal and shattered glass. The smell of smoke and death hung in the air, but there were also signs of hope. Human soldiers helping Volani families find lost relatives. A young private sharing his rations with hungry children. A medic holding the hand of a dying Volani elder, making sure she did not die alone. Cerise watched all of this with wide eyes. You're soldiers, she said quietly. They are very kind. They're good people, Cooper replied. Most of them volunteered for this mission. They knew the risks, and they came anyway, even knowing they might die for strangers. Cooper smiled. That's what we do. They found High Counselor Theven in a damaged building that had once been a school. He was helping to organize food distribution, working alongside his own people despite his high rank. When he saw Cooper, he stopped and bowed deeply. Major Cooper, I am Theven, leader of the Volani. I wanted to thank you personally for what your people have done. Cooper returned the bow awkwardly. He had never been comfortable with formality. No thanks needed, sir. We're just doing our job. Your job? Theven shook his head. You crossed the stars to fight for people you had never met. You sacrificed your own soldiers to save our children. That is more than a job, Major. That is something I do not have words for. He gestured for Cooper to sit, and they settled on benches that had once held Volani students. I must ask you a question, Theven said. The Korath attacked us because they feared what we might become. They wanted to destroy us before we grew strong enough to threaten them. But why would humans help us? What do you gain? Cooper thought about the question for a long moment. It was something he had been asked before, in different ways, by different people. The answer was simple, but he knew it would be hard for Theven to understand. Back on Earth, he began, we have a long and ugly history. We fought wars against each other. We've done terrible things to our own people. For thousands of years, humans hurt and killed each other over land, resources, religion, and the color of our skin. Theven listened silently, his expression unreadable. But somewhere along the way, we learned something. We learned that the strongest thing a person can do is not to fight for themselves. It's to fight for someone else. To protect the weak. to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Cooper looked out at the ruined city, at the soldiers and civilians working together. When we heard your distress call, we didn't ask what we would gain. We didn't calculate the risks or the costs. We just came because you needed help and we could give it. That's who we are. The Thieven was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. My people have always believed that the universe is fundamentally good. That if we were kind and peaceful, others would be kind and peaceful in return. The Korath proved us wrong. But perhaps, he paused, searching for words. Perhaps we were not entirely wrong. Perhaps there is goodness out there. We just had to look in the right place. Cooper smiled. There's bad out there too. Plenty of it. But we try to tip the scales a little bit, wherever we can. Their conversation was interrupted by an explosion in the distance. Cooper was on his feet instantly, reaching for his weapon. Report. He barked into his communicator. This is Santos. We've got a Korath holdout in Sector 12. They were hiding in the tunnels. Maybe 100 soldiers. They're attacking the main refugee camp. I'm on my way. All available units converge on Sector 12. Protect those civilians at all costs. He turned to Thieven. Stay here. Stay safe. Then he ran out. The battle at Sector 12 was fierce. The Korath had caught the humans by surprise, emerging from underground tunnels that no one knew existed. They attacked the refugee camp with suicidal fury, knowing they were doomed but determined to kill as many Volani as possible before they died. Cooper arrived to find chaos. Civilians were running in every direction. Human soldiers were trying to form a defensive line while medics dragged wounded to safety. Form up on me, Cooper shouted. Push them back. The next 15 minutes were the longest of his life. He fought hand-to-hand with Korath soldiers twice his size. He took hits that would have killed an unarmored man. He watched 2 of his soldiers fall and kept fighting, because if he stopped, the civilians behind him would die. When it was over, the Korath were dead. Every last one of them. Cooper stood in the center of the camp, breathing hard, his armor covered in alien blood. Around him, Volani civilians slowly emerged from their hiding places. They looked at the human soldiers with something new in their eyes. Not just gratitude. Not just relief. Hope. A small Volani child walked up to Cooper and held out a flower. It was a simple thing, blue and white, probably picked from the rubble. Thank you, the child said in careful English. Cooper knelt down and took the flower gently. You're welcome, he said. You're safe now. I promise. And in that moment, surrounded by destruction and death, a new alliance was born. Not between governments or militaries, but between peoples. Between hearts, the galaxy would never be the same. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. On 1,000 worlds, on space stations and ships and colonies. Beings of every shape and size watched the reports coming from Vareth Prime. They saw the footage of Korath warships exploding like toys. They saw human soldiers descending from the sky to save a doomed civilization. They saw the impossible become real. And they were afraid. The Galactic Council met in emergency session on the station, called Nexus Prime. It was the largest structure ever built. A city in space where representatives from every major species gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance. Today, that chamber was filled with chaos. This is an act of war. The Korath ambassador screamed, his mandibles clicking with rage. The humans attacked our fleet without provocation. They murdered thousands of our soldiers. They must be punished. Without provocation? Replied the Volani representative, a young male named Terrace, who had lost his family in the invasion. You were committing genocide. You were murdering children. The humans stopped you from finishing what you started. The Volani were flagged as a potential threat. We had every right under the Galactic Accord to take preventive action. Preventive action? You killed millions of innocent people. The chamber erupted in shouting. Species that had been rivals for centuries found themselves on the same side. Others, who had always feared the Korath, saw an opportunity to speak against them for the first time. In the middle of this chaos, a holographic image flickered to life at the center of the chamber. It showed an older human woman in a military uniform, her silver hair pulled back severely, her eyes hard as steel. "Members of the Galactic Council," she said, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. "I am Admiral Catherine Morris, Commander of the Earth Defense Fleet. I have come to speak to you directly." The chamber fell silent. Everyone wanted to hear what the humans would say. Admiral Morris looked around the room slowly, meeting the eyes of each representative in turn. "You are all asking the wrong questions," she began. "You want to know how we developed such advanced technology. You want to know how our ships travel so fast. You want to know why we kept our true capabilities hidden for so long." She paused, letting the tension build. "The answer is simple. We did not trust you." Murmurs swept through the chamber. The Dothrani ambassador rose to protest, but Morris continued before she could speak. "For 2 centuries, humanity has been watching the galaxy. We have seen how things work here. We have seen the strong prey upon the weak. We have seen entire civilizations erased because they were inconvenient or potentially dangerous. We have seen this council debate and discuss and delay while innocent. People died." Her voice grew colder. "The Korath have committed genocide against 17 species in the last 500 cycles. 17. Everyone in this room knows it. Everyone in this room allowed it. The Dothrani claimed neutrality. The Mekith said it was not their concern. This council scheduled meetings and passed resolutions and did nothing of consequence." The Korath ambassador clicked his mandibles angrily. "You have no right to judge us. You are primitives. You have been in space for barely 2 centuries. What do you know of galactic politics?" Morris smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We know enough. We know that this galaxy is ruled by fear and self-interest. We know that no one helps the weak unless there is something to gain. We know that species like the Volantis are sacrificed so that species like the Korath can feel safe." She leaned forward, her image growing larger in the chamber. "We decided long ago that we would not play this game. We developed our technology in secret. We built our fleet in hidden shipyards. We prepared for the day when we would reveal ourselves, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. You deceived the entire galactic community," the Mekith representative said. "Your military buildup violates dozens of treaties and accords. Treaties we never signed. Accords we were never consulted on. Rules designed to keep newcomers weak and compliant." Morris shook her head. "Those rules do not apply to us." "Then what rules do apply to you?" the Dothrani ambassador demanded. "If you reject our laws, what is to stop you from becoming the next Korath? What is to prevent you from using your power to dominate and destroy?" It was a good question, and the chamber fell silent waiting for the answer. Morris considered her words carefully before speaking. "We have a code," she said. "It is simple, and it has guided our species through our darkest times. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We stand against bullies and tyrants. We do not start fights, but we finish them." She looked directly at the Korath ambassador. "Your people have built an empire on fear and death. You have crushed anyone who might one day challenge you. You have committed crimes that would sicken any decent being. That ends now. You threaten us?" The ambassador hissed. "You are one species against the galaxy." Morris smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in her eyes. "Let me ask you something, Ambassador. Right now, as we speak, how many human ships do you think are positioned near your homeworld? The Korath ambassador said nothing, but his secondary hands began to tremble. I will tell you, Morris continued. There are enough to ensure that if you ever try something like Vareth Prime again, there will be consequences. Real consequences. Not debates and resolutions and strongly worded letters. Consequences. The chamber was utterly silent now. Every being present understood that the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted fundamentally. We are not here to conquer, Morris said, her voice softening slightly. We are not here to dominate or control. We are here to offer a different way. A galaxy where the weak are protected, not exploited. Where disputes are resolved through negotiation, not extinction. Where every species, no matter how small or young, has a voice and a future. She looked around the chamber one last time. Those who share this vision are welcome to join us. Those who do not. She shrugged. We will be watching. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. Finally, the Volani representative, Terrace, stood up. I propose a motion, he said, his voice steady, that this council formally thank humanity for their intervention at Vareth Prime and invite them to join as full members with voting rights. The Korath ambassador stormed out of the chamber. The Dothrani and Mekith representatives exchanged uncertain glances. But around them, representatives of dozens of smaller species. Those who had always lived in fear. Those who had never had a voice began to stand. One by one, they rose to support the motion. The vote was not close. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and nothing would ever be the same again. 5 years had passed since the day the humans came. Admiral Samuel Hart, promoted after his actions at Vareth Prime, stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Volantis. It was not the same city he had helped save. That city had been mostly destroyed. But the Volani had rebuilt, and they had done it with human help. New buildings rose from the ashes, a blend of Volani elegance and human practicality. The streets below were filled with people of both species, walking together, working together, laughing together. Human children played with Volani children in parks that had not existed 5 years ago. It was beautiful. It was everything Hart had hoped for. High Counselor Theven joined him on the balcony, moving slowly as age began to catch up with him. But his eyes were still bright, still filled with the curiosity and kindness that defined his people. Admiral Hart, thank you for coming to our remembrance ceremony. I would not miss it, Hart replied. This day means something to all of us. Below them, crowds were gathering at the Memorial Plaza. A great wall stood there, covered with the names of every Volani who had died in the Korath invasion. It stretched for nearly a mile, name after name after name. Beside, it was a smaller wall listing the human soldiers who had fallen defending Vareth Prime. Both species would honor their dead today, together. I have been thinking about something, Theven said. About the first day we met. When your ships appeared in our sky, I did not believe it was real. I thought I was dreaming or dying or going mad. Hart nodded. I remember getting your distress call. We were so far away. My officers said we could never make it in time. But you came anyway. We had to try. That's who we are. Theven was quiet for a moment, watching the crowds below. The galaxy has changed so much in 5 years, he said. The Korath Empire is falling apart. Their client states have broken free. Species that lived in fear for centuries are now standing up for themselves. The Galactic Council has real power now, real ability to protect the vulnerable. The Interstellar Compact, Hart said. Our greatest achievement. The Interstellar Compact was an alliance of over 40 species, bound together by shared values rather than fear. They had mutual defense treaties that actually meant something. They had peacekeeping forces that could actually enforce the peace. For the first time in galactic history, there were consequences for aggression, and humanity was at the heart of it all. But it is not just politics, Theven continued. Something deeper has changed. Species that never trusted each other are now working together. Worlds that were enemies for generations are finding common ground. There is hope in the galaxy that did not exist before. Hart smiled. Don't give us too much credit. We just showed everyone what was possible. They did the rest themselves. You showed us something more important than that. Theven turned to face him directly. You showed us that goodness exists. That beings will sacrifice for strangers. That there are those who will fight for what is right, even when there is nothing to gain. He paused, choosing his next words carefully. My people believed in the goodness of the universe. The Korath nearly destroyed that belief. But you restored it. You proved that we were not wrong to hope. Before Hart could respond, a young voice called out from below. Father, Father, come quickly. A young Volani female was waving at Theven from the street. Beside her was a human boy about the same age, and together they were pointing at something in the sky. That is my daughter, Theven said with a smile. Born after the invasion. She has never known a time without humans. To her, your people are simply part of her world. They walked down to where the children were standing. The human boy, whose name was Lucas, was the son of one of the soldiers who had helped rebuild the city. He and Theven's daughter had been friends since they could walk. Look, Lucas said excitedly, pointing upward. The ships are coming. Hart looked up and smiled. A formation of human and Volani vessels was flying over the city in perfect synchronization, their different designs somehow complementing each other perfectly. It was a symbol of the partnership between their peoples. Pretty, Theven's daughter said, her silver eyes wide with wonder. Very pretty, Lucas agreed. Then he looked at Hart with the innocent curiosity of childhood. Sir, is it true you were here during the bad times? When the monsters came? Hart knelt down to meet the boy's eyes. Yes, I was here. Were you scared? Very scared. But I had to be brave, because there were people who needed my help. Lucas nodded seriously. That's what my dad says. He says being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing anyway. Your dad is a wise man. The boy smiled, then grabbed his Volani friend's hand. Come on, let's go see the ships up close. The two children ran off together, laughing, the weight of history and war meaning nothing to them. They were simply friends, running through a city that their parents had saved together. Hart stood and watched them go, feeling something warm in his chest. That, he said quietly, is why we do this. Theven nodded. So that children can be children. So that they never know the fear we knew. They walked together toward the Memorial Plaza, where humans and Volani were gathering to remember the fallen. The ceremony would be long and emotional, filled with tears and stories and promises to never forget. But it would also be filled with hope. Because when the speeches were done and the tears were dried, both species would return to the work of building a better galaxy. They would face new challenges and new dangers. There would be times when they disagreed, when they argued, when they doubted each other. But they would face it all together as the sun set over Volantis, casting long shadows across the memorial wall. Admiral Hart thought about all the names carved into that stone. Human and Volani, they had died so that others might live. They had sacrificed everything so that two species could become friends. It was the highest price anyone could pay. And it had been worth it. Later that night, after the ceremonies were complete, Hart found himself standing alone before the memorial. The stars were coming out, thousands of points of light scattered across the sky. Each one represented a world, a people, a story waiting to be told. We're just getting started, he said to no one in particular. There are so many out there who need help. So many who are alone and afraid. So many who have given up hope. He thought of the distress call that had brought him to Verth Prime 5 years ago. A desperate plea from a dying world, sent into the void with no expectation of an answer. "We hear you," Hart said softly. "All of you. And we're coming." Above him, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. The galaxy had changed forever because humans had decided to help strangers. Not for power, not for profit, not for glory, just because it was the right thing to do, and they would keep doing it. For as long as there were people who needed them, that was the human way. That was the promise they made to the stars, and it was a promise they intended to keep.